Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. As you see what's going on our lovely island of Thornhollow today, where, if you can tell by today's title, I have finished playing Goodbye Volcano High, and I will be talking about it in today's episode. If you're new here, this is my video diary. I talk about things which, whatever's really on my mind. I'm not recreating anything in Animal Crossing. I'm not recreating Goodbye Volcano High, and this is not a very structured review or anything. I'm just going to talk about it. I'll warn you before I get into any spoilers and that sort of thing, and I'll say, on the whole, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's like revolutionary or anything, and I think it's actually probably very, very variable how much you'll like this game. I think there's a very strong chance that, like, okay, how do I say this? The variance in how much it will appeal to you is huge. I think this game, like, either you'll be like, yeah, this is like really my jam, or you'll be like, I hate this, which is fair enough, I suppose. But anyway, good evening, everyone. Right now in Thornhollow, it's 11:46 p.m. on Monday, November 27th, 2023. Winter is here, apparently. So yeah, I mean, I suppose there's a little bit of an elephant in the room to do with Goodbye Volcano High, which I apparently wasn't all that aware of, to be perfectly honest. I actually found out from someone who messaged me, being like, thank you. They said something along the lines, thank you for giving Goodbye Volcano High a try. It had like a rocky release and that sort of thing. And, it's awesome that you're giving it its fair shake. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, obviously I said thank you because they were very nice words, but I didn't even realize there was like issues around it. If I think really, really hard, I do vaguely remember seeing Goodbye Volcano High as like teased in some sort of trailer thing, in some, not a game show necessarily, but maybe like game teaser show thing. But apparently it had like a very rocky release where, it was like slated to be released in like 2021, and then it had to go through like a full rewrite because the person who was a writer was like not a great person or something, as I understand it. Okay, like, I'm gonna be honest, if you want drama, you can go look up like a drama channel to cover it. I'm not really gonna cover it, but basically TLDR, but it had like a pretty rocky release. There was a lot of people who like, I was trying to find the other scenes on YouTube that I didn't get. A lot of people like really, really hate this game, which seems like a bit much to me, because I don't know, like, to me, to carrying around that amount of hatred for anything is, only reserved for probably the most strictest of situations. But it's not really my place to judge, because maybe it's all ironic, maybe it's not. I don't really know. In the end, what really matters is like what my experience was playing it, because I am me, and that's basically it. So I don't know, that's addressing the elephant quote in the room. It's not really much of an elephant, I suppose. I do know that there's another game called like Snoop Game or something, which was born out of like being a parody, I think, of a game or something. I don't really know much about it. I don't really plan on playing it, so I don't know. If it's good, more power to you. I'm going to talk about Goodbye Volcano High now. Okay, so I would say on the whole, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I didn't like it. I think, like, the thing with Goodbye Volcano High is, to me, the one thing I like actively hated in it, I think probably the best way to describe it is, I, on a high level, enjoyed a lot of the concepts it was going for, and on a micro level, I enjoyed the small interactions, but I feel like there's something missing in the in-between, I feel like there's not quite, if I had to give a critique, which, I will, no, I give anything I play, I suppose, critique, is it feels like there's not enough, I suppose, of it, for it to have the high level payouts and for the micro level things to feel like of any sustenance, if that makes sense. And you might be like, what does that mean? Okay, so I guess we'll start getting into mild spoilers, but Goodbye Volcano High, it's a story, basically, I'm distilling it down, it's basically a teen drama about the apocalypse, the impending apocalypse, kind of. But I think a major point, actually, with Goodbye Volcano High is that this pacing is very, very strange. It starts out very sort of like slice of lifey, which is nice, I don't have anything wrong with slice of life. It's one of my favourite genres, to be perfectly honest, and it was comfy, it was comfortable, and there was sort of like this overarching sort of threat of the apocalypse, but most people are kind of dismissing it. Fair enough, that'd probably be how people would be like in real life. I mean, it feels like it's like a bit of a slow build to begin with. I think a lot of people will probably find it a bit too slow at the beginning, if they're expecting like more dramatic things, but then it goes like nosedive slow, I suppose, when it goes through the L&L sections, which I thought were fun, but they are very like cool slice of lifey, and I only really the third L&L section, which is basically their D&D, I thought like advanced the plot in some or gave a different perspective on the plot in a meaningful way. The others kind of just felt like, just sort of fun times, which is, it's perfectly fine to have fun times. But the thing is, Goodbye Volcano High, I think, centers around this very sort of poignant point about the apocalypse, about the end of life, about like an inevitable fate you cannot avoid. What do you do with a life cut short, and those moments that you won't have? It comes out very much swinging towards the end, I suppose, at it. Like it sort of escalates way too quickly towards the end, I think, where all the teen drama sort of starts exploding, and then it's like it's being built up with the apocalypse as well, which I guess you could say is reflective of the apocalypse. For me personally, I was just like, whoa, where is this like coming from? Or it basically felt like the ending was too fast and the beginning was a bit too... I'm not going to say it's too slow personally for me, but I think you can definitely see it as being too slow. So now we're going to go... Now I'm just going to be like spoilers fully off. I don't think this game is all that non-enjoyable if you are spoiled, to be perfectly honest. Like to a certain degree. There's not like huge twists in it or anything. More of enjoyment comes out from the sort of like... not day-to-day business, but the actual experience of the small talk back and forth and the exchanges, the interactions between the characters, I think. Probably the defining thing is like, I feel like I wanted more interaction with characters and more development for characters. Like some characters get like a good amount of development, like Fang, obviously main character, they get tons of development. They are so like one track mind about music as their career. Like I think it's literally the only thing that they can do, and they are great at music. They are positively fantastic with music, but they fail to see like the wider scope of how people like music, but others don't share their passion for it to the same extent. And it's about them sort of coming, not only coming into terms about being more open to not feeling like alone, with their relationship with Trish, as Trish goes to pursue other alternatives, and being a bit more open, being a bit more caring, and thinking about their friends' feelings, to be that sort of like supporting rock, I think, in the final moments of their lives. And I'm like, okay, Fang gets a good amount of development, I think, it works. And Trish is sort of like okay-ish amount of development. Trish and Reed, like, they have like broad strokes. Trish is sort of like a really hype, like a hype girl, like a Genki girl, if that's the sort of trope you fall into. But she's sort of like dismissive about all random things, being like, we'll talk about this another time, and she's not very direct when it comes to speaking about things, to the extent where she doesn't really personally hold grudges, but it does sort of like end up building up with resentment to feeling like she's not being listened to, but also, on her part, she's not doing the greatest job at communicating at the same time. So it's sort of like that's an interesting sort of dynamic. I didn't really chase Trisha's options in the story, so maybe she gets even more development if you do that. And Reed has some interesting thing about him being quite fatalist. He's meant to be like, he seems like some real chill, calm guy, that sort of thing, but really internally he's getting a lot of distress over the end of Apocalypse and that sort of thing. But then the other characters don't really get too much development. Like NASA kind of does. Maybe it's because we had more interactions with him. He's sort of like a golden child who doesn't want to be like, who feels a crazy amount of pressure to be the perfect golden child of that sort of kid, and him like slowly opening up and about that, I guess, is kind of cool. But he doesn't change too much. It's more like you see more of him, I guess. And Naomi is along the same sort of lines, where Naomi gets like, I kind of wanted to see more of Naomi's like sassy, aggressive, like, type A personality. I don't know how you describe it, like earlier on, she's very sort of like sweet and kind and nice. It seems like she's very sort of like a gentle valedictorian-esque character, but then like towards the end you see that sort of like bubbling up anger. You don't even see her bubbling up anger, she just kind of explodes in anger, to be perfectly honest, which is like, oh yeah, I would like to see more like drops of this early on, which maybe you do, I don't really know. And it's sort of like a recurring thing where it's like, I feel like there's more potential within these characters than the sort of broad strokes that we touched upon. And then, like Stella, Rosa and Sage get like no development whatsoever. Like I don't even know anything about Rosa. She's just kind of like nice. She's just kind of there. If anything, she's kind of more of a proponent of driving a wedge between Trish and Fang, if anything. And Sage kind of gets like a pass because he's like sort of a comic relief-esque character, and you do get a moment with him where he opens up about being like, oh, not taken seriously because of XYZ, but he'd rather be not people sort of on edge, so he's totally fine. He's not totally fine, but he chooses to play like the sort of jester-esque role. And then Stella is sort of like, I don't know, she's just kind of like there for most of it, and then she's like, oh, towards the end it's like, whoa, okay, she gets like a little bit of a character arc where she's sort of like doubting her belief of like her faith in like spirituality, not so, and it's not so much about the faith of the spirituality, but like her own confidence and like what she believes in, feeling like how she's building her life on something pointless or something along those lines. And it's sort of like it basically sort of brushes up against the ideas of fate and destiny, which I'm like, this is cool, this is nice, I want more. But then it's sort of like the game ends and it's like, okay. But the interactions between the characters are honestly quite fun, quite nice, you know. And I a lot of the times I think I was playing the game and I'll be like, I can absolutely see like me and my friends saying like something stupid like this in like high school and teenage years or something like that, or even now, to be perfectly honest. Like it does feel like reflective of that sort of thing. I feel like the game was a little bit buggy sometimes, like the dialogue will like jump and cut over each other, but I think the voice actors and actresses did like a fantastic job, to be perfectly honest. They all did really well. And the character design is also does a pretty good job, I think, of communicating the characters pretty well. And by far and away, like, this is such a minor thing, but by far and away the best thing about Goodbye Volcano High, which is absolutely crazy to me, is like every single background character has a full-on design. Background character or really minor side character, like there's like 30 random students in high school that you see like maybe once or twice, and they all have an individual design. And there's one scene where you're sitting like in a school assembly in the morning for like a school address or whatever, and I was just going crazy because I was like, why does not why is it like, why would you do this, but it's like, it's absolutely crazy that every single character in the scene has their own individual and unique design. It was wild. It was like, there must have been like 80 or something designs in that scene alone. It was crazy. Okay, maybe not 80, maybe like 50 or something. It was crazy. But that's the attention to detail sort of like because you can sort of get vibes, I suppose, about the characters and, you know, the way they present themselves and the personalities, and often the main character designs, I think, do that pretty well, you know. I mean, like Sage, I'm bringing him up because obviously he's very sort of like cutesy, bubbly design. It's, you know, lends well to, you know, the way he wants to portray himself and things like that. So I quite like character designs. So of course, I'm sure I'm biased because I have much more of a slant towards liking anthropomorphic animal designs. I thought they do it pretty well. I'm not often a fan of like animals which don't have like fur or hair having hair, but I was like, yeah, that's fine. I think some of it were like, I like Rose's hair, like Stella's hair, but then like Fang's was a bit like, it's okay. And Reed certainly felt a bit more iffy to me, but honestly, I like the fact that they all had a very distinct fashion choice as well. You know me, I love my fashion. What else to talk about? The music was really good in the game. I love the rhythm game incorporation to it. I think it's very niche, is what I'd say. Like, not a visual novel, that's the word. Visual novel combined with rhythm game. It seems quite difficult for a rhythm game. Like, even I was struggling towards the end. So I don't know, you know, if you don't play rhythm games, I think you're really going to struggle with some of those later levels. I don't really know how much bearing it has on the game. But another thing I will say is, it's not really a visual novel, as it more is like an interactive movie, if anything. Because visual novel, the concept of visual novel is often like these ideas of branching paths and, you know, different endings, and you see and unlock things. As I understand it, you can like see and unlock different things or characters. Like on my route, I didn't see like any of Trish's story, to be perfectly honest. But if you choose a lot more Trish dialogue, you see more things as well. But you can't really change the ending, which I'm sort of like on two minds about this. One, I feel like that is a shortcoming for the visual novel genre. To not include it for the visual novel genre. It's a genre sort of like based around seeing these different endings, based around these different outcomes, like a sort of choose your own adventure. Therein lies the fun of it. But by taking that away, it's sort of like, I guess the way I'd put it is, it makes your choices feel a bit more meaningless to the end. But on the other hand, it's kind of, why I'm two minds about this is, like, if you take the story on its face value, on its like high end discussion, that's kind of like what the point of the story is like, no matter what you do, it's all like pointless at the end. It's about the journey. The destination is the same either way, in this case, because the world is ending. But the thing is, I don't know, I'm not like fully sold on the way the story develops in the game, mainly because, again, as I say, there's nothing I hate about the game, to be perfectly honest. I think if you don't like teen dramas, you will hate this game, because this game is like 90% teen sort of drama, like just teens being teens and that sort of thing. If you don't like that, I would not play this game. But if you're fine with it, if you tolerate it, that sort of thing, I think I just distilled it down to being like, it's not, I don't hate this game, there's bits I like, but there's not enough, you know, of it for me to be like, yes, to like sink your teeth into, I guess, to be like, yes, this payoff at the end. Like, this is a big thing, is towards the end there is what I assume is meant to be the big payoff, like the hit yourself right in the hit yourself in the feels moment of the world is ending, they're playing this giant concert, and there's like this montage of them like setting up a concert and the things they did for it, and it's all like, oh yeah, it feels good. And then it goes on, the montage goes on to all these fake memories of things which will never happen because they are all going to die. And I'm just like, conceptually, I'm like, that is brilliant, man. It's fantastic, lovely. You know, I love my melancholic endings. And it's obviously, you know, built up in the story. You know, it's established very pretty early on from the beginning with the signs and that sort of things. They are probably all going to die. You know, it's a bit in limbo for a while, but I think if you play the game, you'll be like, yeah, they're probably going to die. I mean, it's good. It's called Goodbye Volcano High. Of course they're going to like die in the apocalypse in the end. But the thing is, it doesn't feel like there's enough of a build-up to it for it to get that emotional sort of gut punch. Because a lot of it, you know, I was sort of like looking at it being like, oh, you know, these are like sad moments and that sort of thing. But like, we didn't really have many of those moments in the first place with a lot of the characters to feel like, oh, this is what we're missing out on. This is what we could be missing out on. It's sort of like here's what you'll be missing out on, rather than this is what you'll feel like you'll be missing out on. If you understand what I mean? It's sort of like the emotional payoff didn't quite work because there wasn't enough of a investment in the beginning for it. Does not say it didn't work, but to say the emotional payout wasn't as high. You know, no, it's not to make me, again, as I say, it's not actively bad. It's just sort of like a okay, is how I describe it. Them overall. Going back to the point about the fact you can't really influence things, I think there is something to be said about the fact that it doesn't feel like a lot of my choices had much matter, except for it allowed me to see some other characters' stories, I guess. The thing that, as I understand the most from like one which I read about it, which I thought I just didn't do correctly during the actual gameplay itself, was with Trish, because obviously me as an outsider looking on, I was like, obviously Trish, you know, doesn't want to continue this band, and Fang is too blind to see that not everyone else shares their passion for this idea of pursuing music as a career. And, you know, I kept trying to play in a way where it's like, yes, let's open up this discussion, let's have Fang realize sooner. And it would have been nice to have a game sort of reward me with that, where it's like, oh, instead of, you know, Trish and Fang having an argument at the end because Fang still doesn't realize somehow that Trish is not fully as invested in this situation as Fang is. It would have been nice if that payout was like different. Instead of them having a huge argument, it's them like crying because they know that was their last time like performing together or something like that, because Fang has now accepted it or something because of the choices I made before. It just, I don't know. I guess it's sort of like I want more of a payout for what I was doing. You know, I felt like I was playing a certain way, and sometimes I got the payout. You know, I was playing Fang as very sort of confident, very sort of driven, and then you get the payout of them like going out onto the stage and playing their solo show. I don't know if that happens in every playthrough. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I think the photo at least doesn't happen in every playthrough, and it's like, oh yeah, awesome, the sort of rocking out thing at the end. Okay, so now we get onto minor points. Minor points, the fact there's no save system in this game, like manual save system, is crazy for a visual novel. That very much feels like a given, because I think the only way to get the other endings is you had to, or get the other like optional scenes, is you had to play through the entire game itself, which is not something I'm willing to do. Despite the fact I am curious about it, that is definitely just too much time for me. It definitely feels like there should be save states in this game, or like at least a chapter select or something. It feels like almost like a requirement of these sort of like decision based games. I always feel like when you get to the end of it, your reward should be, now you have an easier time to go back and see other choices which you could have made. You might be like, well, that's what playing through the game is like. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, I've already seen a lot of the game now. I just want to see the things which I haven't seen. So I don't know. You could argue that Varen is a puzzle trying to figure out how to get these scenes in the first place, but that's not for me. The other minor thing is this game is amazing in terms of representation. This game goes crazy for representation. I mean, there's like obviously a huge swath of LGBT representation. There's a lot of like not as popularly represented cultures shown in the game as well, like Fang's Fang's family, I believe, is maybe this might expose my ignorance. I think they're Middle Eastern. I assume because there was like Fatima and Nasser are both Middle Eastern or maybe Arabic names. I'm not sure entirely, and that's pretty cool as well to certainly see. But yeah, this game goes very hard on the LGBT representation. Like, Fang is non-binary, trans, Sage is trans. I read apparently that Rose is trans, which I didn't even know you could find that out. But apparently, if you pursue more scenes of her, she's trans as well, which is pretty cool. Like Reader's gay, things like that. It's like, the characters are, I'd say, fleshed out enough of them not to just be, but okay, for one, they're not like just stereotype representation, which is always good, and two, they are characters in of themselves. So it's not just like, oh, it's their whole defining personality trait. I'd say they have other personality traits, broad stroke personality traits, mind you, but that's not really the fault of them being like they don't feel tokens, I suppose, in this game, which is great. And you might be like, does representation matter in games? And I'd say yes. It doesn't matter to everyone, and it matters to everyone in a varying degree, especially depending on the representation you normally see in media, etc., etc. But it's always nice for people, I think, to be able to connect to characters or things they see in media in a way which they don't usually get to, especially if they're underrepresented. Non-binary. I'm sure it's like I can't even think of many non-binary characters, and they're all in indie games now. I think about them, but I'm sure if you're a non-binary person, yeah, you probably can. Maybe if you have a personality like, I don't know, Stella or something, you'd be like, oh yeah, I really love Stella as a character in that sort of way. But there is like, it's always nice to see yourself represented in different character in different ways, right? It's nice to see yourself represented in all sorts of different characters. That way you can have like a interesting connection, I suppose, with them. It allows you to bond with a story more in that way. So yeah, in my opinion, representation does matter. Like, yeah. What other thoughts would I want to say about this game? Yeah, I think that's kind of a distillation of it. I like its broad concept ideas that it's going for, and I like the micro scale character interactions. I just kind of want more. It just feels like, it's like, oh, I had an appetizer, where's the main course? It's like it's another appetizer, and it's like, I would like more. Obviously, I understand it's difficult. It's an indie studio. They had like a crazy development where it's like they had to like restructure and rewrite the entire game. It's not easy, I'm not just saying like, poof, do it. I can't believe you didn't do it. That's, on you. It's difficult. But, at the end of the day, I will still like to say what I would have liked to see. What else can I particularly say about it? Yeah, I don't know. I think that's about it. I think, so basically my TLDR, and you might be like, hey, Dylan, do you recommend I play this game? I would ask yourself two questions. How much do you like narrative-driven games? Asterisk, how much influence do you like having over narrative-driven games? If you're like, I like narrative-driven games, I don't mind if I don't have all that much influence. Yep, that's point number one. Two, how much can you tolerate teen drama? If you can't tolerate it at all, don't play this game. If you find it annoying, or if you're like, I would also say probably don't play this game. If you're like, I like it, or you're like, it doesn't bother me, then I'd be like, yeah, play this game. That's why I say it's so variable, because it does its things, I think, reasonably well. I'm not going to say it does it perfectly necessarily well, but it knows what it's going for. It's going for this sort of teen drama, slice of life into teen drama with these moral quandaries over, I suppose, in the end. But if that's not your jam, then it's not your jam. Then, there's no point recommending a game which is not your jam, right? So on the whole, I enjoy it. I would say, another thing, the backgrounds of a game are amazing, beautiful. The art style of the background's fantastic. Like, the characters I think are really good, but the backgrounds are like, whoa. The scenery, popping. I also like some other things with the dialogue boxes, like the way they react with Fang's emotions, like the TV static which appears, the like sort of dynamic dialogue boxes. The ones with static when they're getting angry. The social media was absolutely unhinged. I loved it. What else? I don't know. I think that's it. I think it's an enjoyable game, is what I'd say. I'm really. There's something else I feel like I wanted to say about it, but I don't remember what it was. Oh well. Maybe I'll remember it and I'll talk about it in a different Animal Crossing episode. But for now, I'm going to wrap this episode up here. So, thank you. Shout out to my 2 friends for buying that game for me. I enjoyed it. But if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope we see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.